Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. More than a dozen Wet'suwet'en and their supporters were arrested in the pipeline dispute in northern British Columbia yesterday. Coastal GasLink says they now have access to workers trapped in the camps behind the blockades. With the arrests, one hereditary chief is asking for a sit-down with the Prime Minister. APTN's Lee Wilson is in the region. We're having some technical problems getting that story to you, but we will circle back to it. Well, there's lots of outrage over those arrests. It's already sprung up in other parts of the country. Supporters, about 150 in fact, took to the streets of downtown Toronto. This happened over the noon hour there. Dancers and marchers eventually made their way to the Royal Bank Plaza, where the goal was to bring notice of trespassing to the office of TC Energy. That's the company that's developing the Coastal GasLink project, and to bring the message that the people are for the people at the blockades in British Columbia.
So I want them to know that we're here supporting them, the people who were there on the ground, and that everybody at this point should be rising up to push back against this system, which is exploiting the planet for profit.
Similar support rallies popped up in other cities, including Winnipeg, where around 80 people shut down one direction of Portage Avenue. Well, officials in BC are now implementing a plan to build a levee in the Sumas Prairie to help stop rising floodwaters. Hundreds of acres of farmland has been devastated and hundreds of people have been evacuated. APTN's Tina House joins us from the flood zone with a historical view on what the land meant to the Stolo Nation.
Thank you. We're here in the traditional territory of the Sumas First Nation, and as you can see behind me, this is the Sumas Prairie. This is exactly where the flooding is happening at the moment. The Nooksack River from the United States is actually flowing into this valley, and at one time this was actually an ancient lake called the Sumas Lake, which now it does look similar to a lake. Joining me today is Chief Dalton Silver of the Sumas First Nation. Chief Silver, can you please tell me about what's happened here over the last few days for you?
Well, over the last few days, it's been pretty frightening for a lot of our people. I think we more or less have our homes where our ancestors had the homes, and our late uncle, I have to say, Chetalak, who is not with us now. His son carries that name now, but he told us that should the lake come back totally, we're in a good place, and we shouldn't worry about it, and that our people knew where to build because of the levels of water, and we knew when the water would come up, and our ancestors knew when the water would come up and things. So, you know, luck would have it, and the Creator spared us from having the water come up to our houses.
Chief Silver, I understand that this is the first time that you've been able to see it from this vantage point. What were your first thoughts when you saw this view here? I
saw this, and I really have to say, heart goes out to our neighbors. I have a lot of good friends out here, and some of our relatives over in the Arrow area, just a little bit to the east of us, were evacuated as well. And I have some friends that are evacuated, and I'm worried about their safety and wondering where they are. And I'm sure, you know, everybody's been stepping up and helping one another out. And I think in times like this is when we really need to.
Absolutely. Knowing that, you know, this is where 50% of all the dairy is supplied to the rest of the province here in this valley, you know, it is difficult to look out there and to see this literally this valley underwater. Take us back in time to when your ancestors were here. Tell us about Sumas Lake and what it meant for your people.
Well, Sumas Lake, I'll have to tell you that it was the river of rivers to us. Most of our villages along in the Stolo area are along what is now the Fraser River, but we've had villages here for millennia, thousands of years, which was once Sumas Lake. Sumas Lake had every species of salmon. It had freshwater mussels. We had sturgeon. We had trout. The islands that were on the high grounds in the middle of the lake were hunting areas for our people. Our hunters would go out on the canoes and harvest deer from the islands there. And when the lake was lost to us, it was our food source was taken away. My late uncle said it was our shopping center. There's a sentiment amongst our people about having the lake come back, and we talk about it every time we have heavy rains and that, and you see flooding out here. We see, well, our lake is coming back, and the teachings of our people is you need to look after everything around you. Everything that looks after us, we're supposed to look after it as well. There's a deal there that the Creator garnered with us a long time ago, and that's something that people are getting away from and people don't understand. And I'm hoping that one day in the future that we can talk and combine our knowledge of our people with the Western science and those that are here now to look at a better way of managing, look at a better way of stewardship, if you will, look at a better way of just taking care of everything around us. Then we can look at sustainability.
Absolutely. Chief Dalton Silver, thank you very much for your time. Back to you in studio.
Thanks so much, Tina. Those are some very wise words. Well, we are in recent weeks, the Yukon has been a COVID hotspot, and First Nations there are concerned about ever-increasing case numbers. Sarah Connors has that story.
Our government has declared a state of emergency under the Civil Emergency Measures Act.
Last week, the Yukon declared a state of emergency due to an unprecedented spike in COVID cases. There are currently 171 active cases in the territory, most of which are in Whitehorse.
This is the most serious it's ever been.
Chief Doris Bill of the Kwanlin-Dun First Nation in Whitehorse says her people are getting anxious about the virus, especially parents of school children.
You know, I saw one person saying she's thinking about quitting her job because there's been so many school closures. She has no one else to rely on.
There's 14 confirmed cases of COVID in the Kwanlin-Dun First Nation. Chief Bill says it's taking measures to reduce the spread.
Our offices are closed. We have social distancing in place. Masking is mandatory. Some of our programs and services have been reduced or not running at all.
In the community of Hangs Junction, there's only one case, but the Champagne and Ajax First Nations located there aren't taking any chances. And last week, they declared their own state of emergency.
Over 50% of our population in the Yukon is at risk because they live and work and play in Greater Whitehorse.
New measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 have been put in place. They include mandatory masking and limits on gatherings and will remain in place until at least December 3rd. Chief Bill says she's desperately urging Yukoners to follow them.
They're there for a reason. They're there to keep you safe. They're there to keep you alive.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson joined End Homelessness Winnipeg to announce $1.5 million in funding for additional warming space for those in need this winter. The money will create a space for 150 new overnight beds in Winnipeg. The building will be named Nadanewuk, which means our relatives. It will be guided by a local coalition of Indigenous organizations. A community care camp is also set up outside the building with 2 teepees and supervised fires operating 24/7 throughout the winter.
Our goal is to open these doors to provide a daytime and evening warming space for those that need that space, coffee, hot chocolate, a meal, but access to the resources and supports that they might need to address some of the issues in their lives, to connect with family, to rest, to access health services, or to even to get back to their First Nations.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, we sit down with brand new Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu to talk about Wet'suwet'en and a whole bunch of other things. Stay with us. It's been months since Member of Parliament have sat in the House of Commons. MPs will return next week for the first time since the federal election. There will be some new faces and new ministers. One of those is Patty Hajdu, who was recently appointed Minister of Indigenous Services. She joins me now in studio. Minister Hajdu, thanks so much for taking time to come talk with us today. You know, there was a lot of congratulatory messages when you were sworn in as Minister of Indigenous Services, but one of the first orders of business was once again appealing a Human Rights Tribunal order on Indigenous kids, child welfare related, of course. How do you think that has set the tone for your role in your new minister's position?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me on the show. And I will say that that was a very tough day, obviously. Yeah. It's a tough day for everyone involved, and it's a tough conversation. But we obviously knew that this wasn't a straight-up appeal. This was really putting this appeal in abeyance with time, meaning putting it sort of aside in a way, pausing it, with time for the parties to come together and really tangibly look at how we settle this for good, with one goal in mind, and that's the wellness of Indigenous people and children. Obviously, there's a significant sum of money on the table. We have, as you know, we're so grateful to Murray Sinclair for coming to the table to help facilitate these conversations. All of the parties are at the table, and they've been meeting regularly to talk about, first of all, how that compensation should unfold, and secondly, how that system reform needs to be built so that we have healthier children and families for generations to come.
Well, and now moving on to the next big fire that you've got in your portfolio happening right now in BC, third RCMP raid in Wet'suwet'en territory, reports of plane loads of RCMP officers being flown in to make these arrests, all kind of with this backdrop of an environmental catastrophe in that province. Now there's calls again for to shut down Canada, as we saw the last time. How do you see this year's conflict coming to an end, or do you?
Well, first of all, I'll just say I think that we have to have ongoing and continuous dialogue, and I know that that is a very complex situation with a number of different Indigenous voices in that conversation already. I stand by, and Minister Miller stand by to assist in any way, but really the dispute is with the province of BC. Those police forces are contracted through the province of BC, and they're under the BC jurisdiction. Nonetheless, we'll be there if Indigenous people think that our voices can help in that dialogue to help move forward those conversations. I know that Minister Miller has deep relationships in BC, and I certainly have some of my own. I'm forming more day by day, and so we'll be there to help with those dialogues. I know the RCMP are contracted by the provinces, of course, but it is a federal police service. Can you guys not just come in and say, no, our federal police are not going to be involved in this? Don't you have that power? That isn't how that process works. In fact, BC uses the RCMP and pays the RCMP directly to provide those services for safety and security throughout the region of BC. And so, again, this is really a dispute between Indigenous people and the province of BC. And as I said, we'll continue to be there to help forward any dialogue that can help resolve the conflict.
Well, let's stay in BC. Obviously, there is an environmental catastrophe that's happening there right now. Lots of First Nations and Indigenous people there are dealing with this and looking to rebuild. What help will there be from your government in the aftermath of this?
Well, we are certainly, this is a whole of government response. First of all, let me be very clear. We've got multiple ministries working and to deliver whatever is needed to respond to the crisis, including the members of the military, including public safety, including transport, all kinds of different departments that are involved in trying to restore safety, first of all, and some of those essential needs to the communities. Indigenous Services has been working directly with the chiefs of the regions affected. Right now, there's about 32 communities that are deeply affected by this. There have been evacuations of about 16 communities. We also have monies going out to those communities for responses that they need in a very similar way that we rolled out COVID response money, which is to provide the support financially to communities for extra needs that they can then deploy quickly. But let me be clear, this is an entire federal government working to support the BC government to make sure that we save lives and support that people to stay safe, to protect as much infrastructure as possible, and then to start that process of rebuilding. And we'll be there for Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities in that area throughout the entire process.
My last question for you is, in this new role, what are you most excited to tackle as Indigenous Services Minister?
Oh, that's a hard question because there's a lot to tackle. But yeah, there's a lot to tackle. But first of all, you know, for me, the overarching goal is to have a more positive and trusting relationship between Indigenous people and the Government of Canada. You know, this is a relationship that's been forged through colonialism. It's been pressured in a number of different ways by competing priorities. But I'll tell you this: I've given the department, you know, some really high-level principles to really focus our work. And the first is transparency. To be completely honest with Indigenous people when we're having conversations about what we can and can't do and how quickly we can and can't do those things together. Secondly, we need to be focused on equity. It's been too long that Indigenous people have not received the same level of services in this country as non-Indigenous people, and that's not just bad for Indigenous people, that's bad for the whole country. Everybody needs to have an ability to reach their full potential, and when we hold back supports and systems and structures from a group of people that prevent that, it's a blow to Canada, it's a blow to our nations, and I want to right that. And then finally, we need to stay focused on autonomy. I think we've learned a really important thing as a country together through COVID, and that is that Indigenous people know how to protect their people, they know how to recover their communities, they know how to deal with the pressing issues that are facing them, and that the more autonomy that people have and leaders have in their communities, the faster that we can proceed to a brighter future together.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by. We're happy to catch up with you, and you certainly have your plate full.
Thanks for the conversation, and we'll be in touch.
For sure. What happens when an APTN reporter trades in a microphone for a medieval sword? Well, we are about to find out. Here's our Quebec correspondent, Lindsay Richardson.
Patience, precision, power. Oh, three qualities I clearly don't have. In a world first, Gunawaga Mohawk territory is taking up longsword fencing, and it looks like it's going to be a smash. That action and more coming up on APTN National News.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This is the drone's eye view of the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe in Robinson Superior Treaty Territory along the shoreline of Lake Superior. Thanks to Matt LeMay for this incredible photo. And how did they escape snow so far? Be sure to send your photos to share at aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east coast, we've got sunshine and 3 for Fredericton, chance of flurries and 7 for Charlottetown. Kuujjuaq, -4 and cloudy skies. Sunshine for Nain, -2. +2 in Sept-Îles, sunny skies there. Sunny in Montreal and 4 degrees. 4 also in Ottawa and sunshine there. North Bay, though, snow and 2 degrees. Same thing for Kapuskasing and Timmins, snow and 2, -2 and snow for Big Trout Lake. Puckatawagan, -8 with some flurries. Norway House, -4, flurries for you too. -2 in sunshine for Winnipeg, 0 for Dauphin and Brandon. 1 and sunny for Swift Current, Regina, and -1 and sunny for Estevan. -13 in snow for La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows, -18 in snow for Stony Rapids. -2 in snow for Peace River and Grand Prairie, -16 in sunny though for High Level. 5 in sunshine for Calgary and Lethbridge. 2 in sunny for Kamloops, Penticton, sunshine, and 5. -1 and snow for Smithers and Prince George, -18 and sunny for Fort Nelson. -27 and sunshine for Dawson, very cold, over -30 for Beaver Creek. Sunny though. -18 for Fort Simpson, Fort Leard, and Trout Lake, sunny there. Paulatuck, you're looking for some snow, -21. Tuktoyaktuk, sunshine, -22. Whale Cove and Chesterfield, both -4 with flurries expected. Sunshine for New Yacht, -19. Igloolik, -22 and sunny. Joe Haven, -27 and flurries. Internationally acclaimed artist Buffy Sainte-Marie has a number of honors to her name. These include an Oscar, a number of Juno Awards, and the Order of Canada, but she can now add postage stamp to that list. APTN's Fraser Needham was at the gala event in Ottawa last night.
Buffy Sainte-Marie was genuinely pleased her likeness is now on a stamp. And why not? Her music career has spanned more than half a century. At 80 years old, Sainte-Marie shows no signs of slowing down. And she says she hopes the latest honor will open more doors for other Indigenous artists.
The white music industry is huge. There are hundreds of thousands of people making sure that you know about that music. The black music industry, it's huge, you know, a lot of people. And we don't have one. So hopefully this is a very significant additional step.
Her impact within the North American Indigenous community and beyond is substantial.
You have been a hero of mine since I was a high school teenager, trying to figure out what to do about music in my life and knowing that I didn't like the music that was being played. But then I found your music, and your music has been part of my life ever since the early 60s.
Sainte-Marie has never been afraid to tackle controversial issues in her music, speaking out against the Vietnam War in the 1960s and championing Indigenous rights throughout her career.
One does not have to be elected to be a leader. And Buffy Sainte-Marie is not elected, but she's a strong leader, a visionary, and she's had such huge impact, global impact, standing up for our rights, social rights, fundamental human rights, our treaty rights. And it makes chiefs and leaders' work a lot easier because of your work.
Sainte-Marie was born on a Saskatchewan First Nation, but adopted by American parents. She has spent most of her living and working life south of the border, but Canada continues to hold a special place in her heart.
Canada has been very good to me, and I'm talking about not just government things, and not just government honors, and not just show business honors, but people in Canada are nice to me, and I get to be nice back. So I work a lot with universities, and I work a lot with schools, and there's a lot to be proud of here, and I'm so glad to have the support of Canada Post.
The picture used on the commemorative stamp is from Sainte-Marie's single The Big Ones, Get Away, from the 1992 album Coincidence and Likely Stories. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Get those stamps for your Christmas cards. Stargazers were treated to a unique spectacle this morning, observing the longest partial lunar eclipse in almost 600 years. The sun, the earth, and the moon aligned just right to produce the eclipse and give it this reddish tint. The event lasted roughly 3.5 hours, and it could be seen from North and South America and parts of Asia and Australia. But if you missed out, you won't have to wait that long. There's a total lunar eclipse coming in November of next year. Well, we are sorry we still can't get that story from the Wet'suwet'en Territory with the latest on what's happening there. We apologize for this technical problem. But watch for on our website, aptnnews.ca, for the latest. Over the weekend, we will have something on there. And on Monday, a full story for you. We need to wrap up, but stay tuned right now for the second part of that APTN Investigates look into the sex trade in Northern Ontario and the police investigation into one of their own for exploiting Indigenous women there. In plain sight, part 2 is on right now. Don't go anywhere.